right, welcome to the Board Game Closet. My name's Jimmy.
I'm Rod.
I'm Bradley.
And today we're checking out Overbattle. Look at all this!
All-War!
The All-War! This is an insane amount of stuff that comes with this game.
Yes.
It is Axis and Allies steroid times 10.
In space.
It's Arnold
In
Schwarzenegger.
space.
Yes.
So let's give you our kind of preview of this game. We're going to show you what all of this is like. Now, we do need to say that everything you see is a prototype. So go to the campaign, check it out, see what all the details are going to be and maybe how it's changed from what you saw in our video. But go check out the campaign to find out that, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's totally worth looking up. These pieces look incredible.
Yeah, they really do look amazing. And so everything, even though that these are 3D printed versions, this represents exactly what they are going to look like, just in a final form.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
Okay, so what makes this game unique and special? So, Overbattle is a game that can play 2 to 4 people, and there is something very unique that they throw in once you make it to the 3-player version, and that is...
The Sin.
The Sin.
The Sin. This game has asymmetrical aspects to it.
Right.
The Sin being that. He is not a player against player until, like Jimmy said, the 3rd round. And then by that time, he's mixed into the whole game. He's sharing planets, sharing asteroids, sharing moons with all the other players. And then on round 3, he turns.
Yeah, he turns around.
He turns around.
Well, potentially could, right? There's some things that could trigger that. But what's really unique about that is on the 1st and 2nd round, he is working with you. So as you're doing all the typical battle stuff, rolling dice, he comes into the battle and helps the attacker every single time.
Yes.
And then, but he never takes casualties. So technically, the Sin are immortal until they attack everybody else.
That's right.
and so that's a really unique aspect because he's trying to work us to get us to maybe attack each other, whittle us down, and then all of a sudden, he's ready to turn the tables.
That's right. The tables will be turned.
But then the rest of the game is it really comes down to a game of economy. You are trying to control these planets, asteroids, and moons. And at the end, every time on every single round, depending on what you control, you're going to get income that you then turn into new units, whether that is ground troops or fleet units, and then you get to place them out onto the board. So although you are trying to ultimately attack someone and take a spot on their home planet, the way that you get that done is by controlling these areas, which is very important in this game because one of the coolest features is that there's not really any setup time because at the very beginning, part of the gameplay is placing out these planets, moons, and figuring that out, and that kind of changes strategy, right?
Yeah, that changes everything because depending on how the asteroids you have them put together will determine how fast you can move to point A to point B, how close the planets are to each other, all that type of stuff plays a factor. So really, no setup time. You're in the game the moment you start placing the first piece.
Yep.
Yeah, it creates this really cool tension right at the beginning where, like, in a few of our games, we've played this 3 or 4 times now, and so there might be a spot on the board where you think, you know what, I'm going to go over there and take that, and so you place some people there. Well, as it comes back around and more troops are put out, you're like, well, I done lost all those guys.
Yes.
And so right at the very beginning, there's already some conflict. You're right in it to begin with and going and rolling dice and doing all that kind of stuff, which is really cool.
So, part of the game itself, like we're just saying, is the setup is actually part of the strategy, which means you're in the game the moment you do it. So a third of the game is this right here, is actually getting it all together, putting the planets out, putting our pieces out, getting to those points, having small battles, and then getting to the bigger battles. And by that time, we're in round 3, round 4. He ends up turning on us, and then boom.
Watch how that goes
you're all
down.
all-out war. It's incredible.
Which is funny because you know that's coming.
Right.
But you are definitely taking advantage of his benefits early on in the game.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden you're like, man, I should have been paying attention to what he was doing the whole time.
Yeah, that's it. It's weighing your options, what's worse, what's better. And for the Sin, for the independent character, for the asymmetrical character, you just have to take opportunities where you can. Sometimes that puts you ahead, sometimes that puts you too thin, spread out amongst the whole board. One of my favorite things about this game is it comes in pieces, essentially. So A 4 complete player game comes with almost a 6-foot long player board, and you're playing from one end all the way to the other. Where if you have 3, you can take off a section, 2, take off another section. And so it makes it to where the game's length is determined by how many players that you have. And I think that's really unique, and it also brings more tension, because in a smaller game, it's
closer.
Literally
You're
smaller
closer.
and closer, and so the proximity changes your strategy. Every game is going to be totally different.
Right, yeah. And the components that we got, I know that this is prototype, but really the coolest idea are these neoprene mats that you get, and it lays down onto the board, and it just looks so good set out. And the fact that you're getting income every round and putting new troops every round, it just feels like there's always so much out on the board, and it just looks great.
And also, I mean, there's just so many options. That's what gets me. Is you have everything from bombers, fighters, battle stations. We have what? We have battle. We have what else? We have
The jump ship,
destroyers, bombers,
mechs, men. And then you have the commanders.
Yes.
So you got, I mean, there's tons of different stuff.
Yep.
And so you have to determine what you want to do. You're going to need multiples of different ones to do that. So it's a pretty intense game. I love it.
It is a really intense game, and the commander is another really neat thing.
Yep.
It actually creates a goal for you each round. If you create so much currency, so much income per round, you actually gain commanders that can add to your attack, your defenses. Every battle, you can move them freely during the battle, during your turn, and that just creates more incentive to take over different planets to get to that mark, to get to that quota.
And
There we
something
go.
we didn't talk about yet is the Cassie system.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
It's very
yes.
unique to this type of game. Is this right here? This is awesome.
And the way that this works is not every type of unit can use this system, but you'll look on your cards and it'll tell you if a unit can use the Cassie system, which is basically like 3 levels. And so there are some units that can go up and they get an advantage. And there's some units that can go down and they get an advantage on defense.
Right.
And then there's some units that can go both places. And so the attacker announces which direction they want to go, and then the defender gets to respond. Okay,
Right.
you're going to go up and get an advantage. I'm going to bear you down and try to get away from you. And so then it just comes down to rolling. And the way that combat really works in this game is you're trying to get the number or lower. So a lot of games you're trying to get a really high number. This one is kind of this is a nod back to an older game.
Right.
And so you're trying to go get a 1 is the best you can get.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Yes.
so then you just determine where your troops are going to be at. You roll the dice, you see how many hits they are, and then the hits are given basically simultaneously. And so then you just clear units off the board. Most of them are just 1 hit. And so you're just combat does not get bogged down, because you're like, okay, I got 3 hits, and then you're defending, so you choose which one. Those are gone, these are gone, and then you just move on, and you keep going until that whole thing is just cleared out, and then you keep going in the game. So it's a really unique system.
So there are clearly a ton of different units in the game. So to help with that, the creators have actually given us tarot-sized cards that have every unit on it. And if that's not enough for you, you can turn them over, and they actually have a QR code that you can scan with your phone. It brings you to a web page. No app is involved. It takes you straight to a web page, and it will give you a lot more details on what each unit does, the movement, all of that.
And what's cool about that is if you see somebody across the table pull out a unit and you're like, what's he trying to do with that bomber over there? You can go through your card, scan it, and then it also kind of gives you a little thing. You're like, oh, I see what he's going to do with that jump ship. I better get ready. And then you kind of prepare on your side.
Yes, totally. So every game is different. It's a little asymmetrical, a lot of territory control, and a lot of dice rolling when it comes to combat. This game has a lot going for it.
Yep. So check it out on Kickstarter. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. And thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.